We begin towards the bottom of Daf Dalet Amud Aleph, where it says, the beginning of the line, Ve'ene mevi imay nesachim. So we're in the middle of a sugya where the Gemara brought a machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, b'negei to what it said in the Mishnah by an Ezra. There's a pasuk that says, Lo yilachem v'lanu livnos beis Elokeinu, that we don't include goyim, that they should donate and participate in building the Beis HaMikdash. So Rabbi Yochanan said that in the beginning, when it comes to build, we don't accept any money from them, anything. Then when it comes later, afterwards, if they want to donate anything for the Bedek HaBayis, so then if it's something that's unique and stands out, you're not allowed to take it from them. But if it's something that doesn't stand out, you could take from them. What did Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish say? That you don't take from Goyim any Nedavos with the Bedek HaBayis for the building of the Beis HaMikdash, not in the beginning, not later, not if it stands out, not if it doesn't stand out. So here the Gemara asks a question on this. But Karbanis, though, we did have in the Mishnah, Karbanis you could take from Goyim, Nedarim or Nedavos. If a Goy wants to bring a carbon Nedavah, that you could accept from Goyim. So now the Gemara asks, if so, Ve'ene mevi imay nesachim, if a Goy is bringing a carbon, doesn't he bring together with the Karbanis also Nesachim, which is the wine that's poured in the Mizbeach together with the Karbanis? And if so, what happens with that Nesachim that a Goy brings? A Moisa Nesachim. If there's leftover from that wine, Loy le klisharis inun, don't we go and use it for the klisharis, to buy klisharis for it? So if so, nimtza mevi davar mesuyim. It comes out that here we're accepting a donation from the goyim, and it's a davar mesuyim. It's a very specific thing that stands out, and therefore this is a question both on Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish that said that we don't accept from goyim a davar mesuyim as a nedava for what's going to be used for the bedek habayis, and here it's a nedava that's being used for the klisharis. Other Mefarshim actually say that this is not a question, that it's not a question on Rabbi Yochanan, and the Gemara over here, when it says Nimtza mevi dava mesuyim, you have to be greatest in the Gemara, Nimtza mevi dava she'ena mesuyim, because really, it's not something that really stands out. The guy is bringing it, and then there's leftovers, and then it's going to be the money of it, it's going to be used for klisharis. It's not really something that stands out, so it's only a question on Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, not on Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara answers and explains. Hey Siv, Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Bun. So he answered and explained how you could accept and use the leftovers of the Nesachim of a guy to buy klisharis. For Hataninam, I'll ask you another question, and what the answer to that question will be the same answer to this question. It says in the Braise, Ne'erochin, you can use a guy, the value of a guy, to be makdish through the of the erech of a goy, and va'erechin, and a goy himself could also donate to the Beis HaMikdash his erech, his value, the halachas of erechin that it says. So loy lebedek habayis inun, doesn't this money of the erechin go to the bedek habayis? So how could a goy be part of the inyan of erechin to be makdish to the Beis HaMikdash? So you have the question over here as well. So, how are you going to answer that halacha over there regarding erechin? The shamayim hu miskaven. The guy, when he does the erech and he wants to give money, so he's giving money l'shamayim, meaning he doesn't give the money directly for the Beis HaMikdash, for the bedek habayis. He wants to give his value to the Eibishter. He thinks it's going to l'shamayim for a carbon. And then we take that money and we redirect the money to be used for bedek habayis. But that's not what the Goy L'Chatchila is giving it for, and therefore we could accept it from him for this. So Keinat Oma Afhacha over here as well, you can say regarding the leftovers of the Nesachim that's going to be used for the Klisharis, the Shamayim U'Miskaven. He donated the money, he brought a carbon together with the Nesachim. And then on its own it comes to the bedek habayis, but that's not what the guy gave it for. Or others are greatest the klisharis, then it's going to be used for the klisharis, and therefore it's not a problem. Ma avad la Rab Shimon ben Lakish. How does Rab Shimon ben Lakish answer this? So according to some opinions, the Gemara here is asking that this is not an adequate answer according to Rab Shimon ben Lakish, because Rab Shimon ben Lakish said that you don't accept any donations from a guy for the bedek habayis, whether it's mesuyim, whether it stands out, whether it doesn't stand out. So even this answer that we just said, that the guy gave it for the klisharis, and then it ends up, he gave it for the nesachim, and the leftovers ends up for the klisharis, but you're not allowed to accept anything from a guy. What difference should it make? So the Gemara says, Rab Shimon ben Lakish pasala, but even according to Rab Shimon ben Lakish, we could explain and say, what's the source that you don't take from a guy for the Beis HaMikdash? that we don't want the guy to take pride in saying that I participated with Yidden to build a Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, in such a case, where the guy is not taking pride in the building of the Beis HaMikdash, he is giving a carbon with Nesachim for the Karbanis. The leftovers we take and use for Bedek HaBayis, for the Klisharis. But a guy that has no idea about this. He's not taking pride in the building of the Beis HaMikdash or the Klisharis in the Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, even according to Reb Shimon ben Lakish, in such a case, it's not a problem to use the leftovers of the Nesachim for Klisharis. Yeah.
So what's Karman? It's not money.
It's not, no, but then it was if there was leftovers, so then they sold that wine and they used the money for the Bedek HaBayis or for the Klisharis. Huh? No, it's not. No, it's brought knife and it's not. He brought. Okay. Rab Chizkiah Omer Rab Simon. Rab Chizkiah said in the name of Rab Simon, Shal, or actually Rab Chizkiah Omer Rab Simon Shal. He asked. I mentioned already last time that it says this expression in Yerushalmi Shal. It doesn't mean that he asked it as a question. He asked in the Bismedrish of the other people there if they agree to his opinion. Mayata, based on what we learned until here regarding not taking from a guy the donations for the Beis HaMikdash. We also don't accept from them donations for the Amas Hamayim, for the water that was prepared for the people that came to be Oile Regel, and for the walls in the city, and the other buildings that were in Yerushalayim. Al Shem Shenema, because it says in the pasuk V'lachem ein chelik, and you don't have a portion. And the conclusion of that pasuk it says Echem ein chelik hutztaka v'zikarim b'Yerushalayim, that a guy should not have any portion or any memory be mentioned, be included in the building of Yerushalayim. Now the Gemara goes to the next part of the Mishnah where it spoke about the kalbain. And what did it say in the Mishnah? There was a machlaikis brought in the Mishnah when a person gives a full shekel for himself and for his friend, b'shutfis. So do you have to give one kalbain or two kalbainis? So the Tanakama said one kalbain, and Rab Meir said two kalbainis. So the Gemara now will explain the pshat and the smachlaikis. Skipping the parentheses here, most mefarshim are not guided this. Masnita de Rab Meir, the Mishnah over here which brings the opinion of Rab Meir. What's the pshat and the opinion of Rab Meir? That when you give one shekel b'shutfis, so you have to give two kalbainis. The Amar Rab Meir, so the source of Rab Meir is Kishem Sheshikloi Teire, just like the mitzvah of Machzas HaShekel itself is Minat Teire, Kach Kalbainoi Teire. Adding the Kalbain to the Machzas HaShekel is also Minat Teire. And the reason for this is, like the Mefarshim say, okay, the Gemara is going to explain it here. Let's see, Kesava Rab Meir holds, B'noisen Shikloi Shalem. When a person gives the shekel, the full half shekel, he's not exchanging anything. He has the full coin that he has to give. Shu chayev bekalbain. He's still chayev to add to that a kalbain min atayra. Dam Rab Meir, because Rab Meir said, "Kimin matbeya shel eish hoitzi hakadosh baruch hu mitachas kisi kveidei." The Eibusha took out a fiery coin from under the kisi hakaved, v'hereu leMoshe v'amalai, and he showed Moshe Rabbeinu this fiery coin, and he told him, "Zeh yitnu." This is the coin that should be given. Kazeh yitnu, exactly like this coin it should be given. So what do you see from this, that he showed him this fiery coin? That it has to be a full coin, complete, without any pagam, without any psilas in it whatsoever. When you give a coin, if it's chipped, if it's missing a drop, if there's any schmutz in the silver or the gold of the coin, so then it's not complete. So in order to be mekayim the mitzvah complete, so therefore you have to add a kalboin, that it should be like the matbeya shel eish that has no chesaron to it.
So what do you have to give two kalboins?
1 second. So when it comes then, when you're giving it b'shutfis, two people together, the reason you have to give two kalbainis, one is for every machtas hashekel, that you have to give the kalbain, and the other kalbain you have to give is for the exchange. Since two people are being mishtatev together in giving one shekel, so it's like they're using the Beis HaMikdash to exchange. Instead of each one of them giving a half shekel, they're giving together one whole shekel, and when you use the service of exchanging, so for that you have to add a kalbain. So that's takana midrabanan, to add a kalbain. So there's the kalbain that you have to give him in Atayra, and the kalbain that you have to give for the exchange. Then it said after this in the Mishnah, Nosan Sela, if you gave a Sela, which refers to giving a full shekel, Litel shekel, and you're taking change, a half a shekel, Chayev Shnei Kalbainis. So you have to give two Kalbainis. Why do you have to give two Kalbainis? Amar Rabbi Lazar, so Rabbi Lazar said, the Rab Meiri. This follows the opinion of Rab Meir, which we just said. The Rab Meir Amar, Rab Meir says, Echad shekel shehu naisen. Once you have to give a kalbain for the shekel that you're giving that you're giving for the mitzvah of machzas hashekel. So you have to take a you have to give a kalbain for that. And ve'echad sela shahu neitel. And another time you have to give the machzas hashekel is because of the exchange of what you're giving and what he's taking from you and what he's returning to you. So you have to give also for the exchange of the machzas hashekel. So for that as well, you have to give a second kalban. There are different girsas here in the Gemara, but in the Karban Ha'eda, he's guided us over here in the Gemara, echad shekel shehu neisen, ve'echad shekel shehu neitel. The gizbar, you have to give him 2 kalbainis. So one is for the fact that he's returning to you. Neisen, he's giving you back a half a shekel, so that he's exchanging you the full shekel with a half a shekel. And then shehu neitel, the shekel that he's taking from you, the half a shekel. So Rab Meir holds that every time you give a machzas shekel, you also have to give another kalban along with this. The Gemara brings a braisa where it says this, the Tanya, it says na braisa elu chayavim bekalban chulu, and it brings over there the lashon that it says in the Mishnah, the same lashon that we just quoted, nasan sela little shekel. So kalbain echad, the Tanakama says you give 1 kalbain for this, just for the exchange, but there's no second kalbain. But Rab Meir amar base kalbainis. Rab Meir says you have to give 2 kalbainis, 1 for every machzas shekel and 1 for the exchange. That's one pshat in this Mishnah, which Rabbi Elazar said. Umar Rav, but Rav says Divrei HaKoil, that this Mishnah that says that you give 2 kalbainis is not only according to Rab Meir. Everybody agrees to this. Divrei HaKoil he. The Amar Rab Meir. Now, why is this Divrei HaKoil? So the Mefarshim over here explained because everybody agrees that when it comes to the exchange in this Eifen, that you have to give 2 kalbainis for the exchange. When a person is giving a machzas shekel with a shutfis with someone else, so then, what are you doing? Instead of 2 people giving each a half shekel, they're sort of saving themselves the tircha of each one getting an exchange for a half a shekel, and they're giving together 1 whole shekel. So for that service, so to speak, you have to give a kalbain to add to the machzas shekel. But if here we're talking about a different case. Here we're talking about 1 person that's giving a whole shekel and getting change a half a shekel. So here there's sort of 2 aspects to the service that you're getting. You're giving a half a shekel, and you're getting back a half a shekel. So you have to give 1 kalbain for the fact that you now have a half a shekel to give to the Beis HaMikdash, and another kalbain you have to give for the service that you're getting back a half a shekel. So therefore it's saying over here, l'kula alma, that you have to give 2 kalbainis when you give a full shekel and you're getting back a half a shekel. So that's the kula alma.
1 person.
Even 1 person. And according to Rav Meir, that says that for every machzas shekel, you have to add another kalbain. In order for the machzas shekel to be b'shleimus, you have to actually add a 3rd kalbain for the mitzvah of machzas shekel b'chlal, as the Gemara here now explains. Rab Meir said, echad shekel shu neisin ve'echad shekel shu neitel. 1 kalbain you're giving for the machzas shekel that you're now able to give, the exchange that you're able to give. Ve'echad shekel shehu neitel. Another kalban you have to give for the change that you're receiving, the machzas shekel that you're getting back. And ve'echad l'divrei Torah. Then there's another kalban that you have to give minat Torah, which you give for every machzas shekel to make sure that the machzas shekel is complete. So al daite de Rav, according to Rav's opinion, gimel kalbainis inum. There's 3 different kalbainis that you give over here. Asa Rab Yirmiyah, so Rab Yirmiyah came and he said the same thing in the name of Rab Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak b'shem Rav. Shloisha kolbainis inon. 3 different kolbainis are being given according to Rab Meir. Echad shekel shehu neisin, ve'echad shekel shehu neitel, and ve'echad l'dvar Torah, as I just explained. So the Mishnah that it says that you give 2 kolbainis, that's not only according to Rab Meir, that's even according to the Chachamim that don't hold of this kolbain that has to be given in a Torah. You still have to give 2 kolbainis for the exchange for giving half a shekel and receiving change a half a shekel. The next part of the Mishnah, what did it say? Ho'achin va'shutfin. So it said in the Mishnah that you have brothers that are shutfin, shechayovim bekalbain peturin mimaisa behema. So they're going to be chayiv when they give machzas shekel together. They'll be chayiv in a kalbain and they'll be potter from meiser behema. So what is this case? That they will be chayiv in a kalbain, but they'll be potter from meiser behema. B'shacholku, when they inherited the money, and all the behemoths that they had as well, there was a Yerusha, but they divided the Yerusha. Each one got their portion. And then, v'chazru v'nishtatfu. And then they became partners again, and what they divided, they became partners again. So in such a case, the halacha is going to be that the chayiv bekalbain, but they're going to be potter from ma'aseh behema. What's the reason for this? So they're going to be chayiv bekalbain, just like we learned in the Mishnah. In any case, two people give machzas shekel together b'shutfis, so they're saving themselves of each one giving separately a half a shekel. So if they're now shutvim. If they're shutvim, so then they have to give a kalbain for that. They're going to be potter from ma'aseh behema though in this case. So the Mefarshim here bring from the Gemara in B'chairis, which says that the mitzvah of ma'aseh behema does not apply to shutvim. It's only for a person alone. There's a pasuk that you learn out that there's no ma'aseh behema by shutvin. So when you had brothers that divided their possessions and then they became shutvin again, so now they're shutvin. If they're shutvin, so they have to give a kalbain, like every time you give b'shutfis, and they're potter from ma'aseh behema. That's that case in the Mishnah. But then, b'shecholku, am I holding? Shechayavim, the next case of the Mishnah, shechayavim b'ma'aseh behema, when it says that they will be chayav b'ma'aseh behema, upeturim in a kalbain, and they're going to be potter from the kalbain. And what case is that? B'shaloi cholku, when you had brothers that inherited the money, and they never made any division. They never divided the money. So what's going to be the halacha then? They're going to be potter from a kalbain because whose money is this? It's not yet their money. They inherited the money, but it wasn't divided yet. So they're sort of using their father's money for themselves for machzas shekel. So what did it say in the Mishnah? When someone else gives machzas shekel for you as a gift, you don't have to give a kalbain. So over here as well, these brothers are using this money that's not even theirs yet. They didn't divide it yet, so they're using that for machzas shekel. There's no kalbain in such a case. It's the father's money that's being used for the machzas shekel. But on the other hand, there will be a mitzvah of ma'aseh behema because there's no shutfis yet. The money, they didn't divide it yet, and they didn't divide it and then split up and then have a shutfis again. There's no shutfis. If there's no shutfis, there is a mitzvah and there is a chiyuv of ma'aseh behema. Now the Gemara brings two opinions regarding this halacha over here. When you get to ma'aseh behema, when exactly it applies, the Gemara brings a machlokes. Amar Rabbi Lazar, so Rabbi Lazar said, when we spoke over here about the shutvim, in other words, these brothers that inherited the behemoths, and then they divided it, and then they became shutvim again. What is the case it's talking about? V'hu shecholku gedoyim keneged tiyoshim. If they had in the animals that they inherited, that there was the gedoyim, the goats, and there were the tiyoshim. What's the tiyoshim? You have the translation for me over there for tiyoshim? The goats. Also what? The older goats, right? Okay. The gedoyim, and so there's the tiyoshim.
Gedoyim is the young one.
Yeah. So they divided, there were gedoyim, and there were tiyoshim. How did they divide it?
Kids against the rams.
Kids against the rams. Okay, so they didn't all take the same animals. Some took the goats, and the other ones took the rams. And tiyashim keneged gedoyim. Then said so each one took only one kind, some gedoyim, and the others tiyashim. So in such a case, what do I say? What really happened over here? They didn't divide the inheritance equally. It's sort of a kinyan that took place. They divided it in a way, I'm getting one part, and you're getting a different part. And there's sort of a payment that takes place that because I'm getting all the goats, so you get all the rams. You get all the rams, I get all the goats. So in such a case, they fully separated, and it's like a new kinyan. So in such a case, even if they're going to later join back together b'shutfis, they're not going to be chayiv and ma'aseh behema. And the reason is because, as the Mefarshim here explain, once it's divided in this way, so it's like mamish like a kinyan that took place. And if it's a kinyan that took place, so that's another exemption of ma'aseh behema. When you buy an animal and you buy the b'chair, there's no mitzvah of b'chairis for a lakuach, for a behema that you bought. So therefore, in such a case where the chalukah was done in this eifin, that they split the gedayim against the tiyashim and the tiyashim against the gedayim, it's like it was bought. It's not like a regular chalukah where you divide equally everything, but each one took a different thing. So it's like bought, and therefore there is no ma'aseh behema. And besides that, as we said before, they're shutvim. They before they inherited from their father, but now they bought it, and then if later they decide to join back together, they become shutvim. That's the time when you're going to say that there's no ma'aseh behema. Aval im cholku gedoyim keneged gedoyim utiyashim keneged tiyashim. But if they did the chalukah, the way you usually do a chalukah, each one takes a little bit from everything. They just divide everything equally. Not that I take the goats and you take the rams. They divide everything exactly equally, the way a Yerusha is usually done. So then, it's not like a kinyan. You can't compare this to something that's being bought where you're paying off for something that you're receiving with something else. It's a regular chalukah of a Yerusha. So if it's a regular chalukah of a Yerusha, so then this is not called lakuach. You didn't buy it, and whatever animal was born is not considered to be lakuach. And also, if they decide to join back together later, so hu chelkai misha harishayna. What I say is, they're not like new shutfim now, where the halacha of shutfus is that you potter from ma'aseh behemah. I say hovra radava lamafreya, that really this is their chelik that they really had from the beginning. They were all had this Yerusha together, and then when they divided the Yerusha in the regular way you divide the Yerusha, that everyone gets a little part, and then if they're going to decide to join back together, it's still the same Yerusha. There's no new shutfus over here. So therefore, in such a case, there will be the chiyuv of ma'aseh behemah. This was the opinion of Rabbi Loza. Rabbi Yechanan argues and says, even they divided the way a Yerusha is usually divided, that everyone gets a little part of everything. Nevertheless, once you divide the monies of a Yerusha, it's considered to be like a lakuchais, like they acquired it, like they bought it, upeturin min hamaiser. And therefore, if later, even if they're going to decide later to join back together, I don't say that they're going back to the original inheritance, that they're all together. No, it's like they bought it, and if they join back together, they're like shutvin, and therefore it's going to be pater from ma'aseh behemah. Kahuda taninan tamam. This ptur of ma'aseh behemah in such a case is based on what it says in the Mishnah by b'chayres halakuach. A b'chayr that's from a lakuach, from an animal that you bought, b'shanitin loy b'matana, or that you got as a gift, potter mi ma'aser behemah, will be potter from ma'aser behemah. Rab Chiya Omar Rab Yirmiyah boy. Rab Chiya, in the name of Rab Yirmiyah, asked the following question. In the Mishnah it said that there's a case of these brothers, that Yarshin, that they'll be chayiv in giving a kalbain, and they'll be potter from ma'aser behemah. And there's a case in the reverse, that they'll be potter from the kalbain and they'll be chayiv and ma'aseh behemah. But here he's going to bring that there's also more scenarios. V'lama les non omrin. Why isn't the Mishnah saying pa'amim shein chayavim bezeh or bezeh? There could be cases that you'll be chayiv both in a kalbain and also be chayiv in ma'aseh behemah. Upa'amim shein peturin mizeh or mizeh. And there's also cases that they can be potter both from giving the kalbain and going to be potter from ma'aseh behemah as well. Hey Chavida, what is the case? So we skipped the parentheses over here. Most Mefarshim and Adgaid is this. So what is the two cases that we're talking about now? Cholku anachasim, if the monies of the Yerusha was divided, v'loy cholku abehemem, and the animals of the Yerusha were not divided, so then chayavin bezeh ubezeh. In such a case, they're going to be chayiv both to give the kalbain, because once they divided the monies, so the money that they're giving for the machtas hashekel, they're giving it as shutvim. It was divided already. If they divided it and then they joined back together as a shutvim have to give the kalbain. And the behemoths, if the behemoths were not divided yet, so then they're not shutvim in the behemoths. If they're not shutvim, it's still like the money of the father, so then they're chayiv in ma'aseh behemah. Only shutvim are potter from ma'aseh behemah, but before they divided it, they'll be chayiv in ma'aseh behemah. So in such a case, you'll be chayiv for both. If it's the reverse, cholku behemah, they did divide the behemoths and then they joined together back as shutfin. V'loy cholku as anachasim, they never divided the monies. Peturin mizeh mizeh, then it'll come out that they're potter from both. They're potter from ma'aseh behemah because they're shutfim, and they're going to be potter from the kalbain because they never divided the monies yet, and therefore it's not them that are giving as shutfim. They're using their father's money sort of as a gift for themselves to use for the shkalim, and therefore there's no kalbain when you use someone else's money as a gift for the mitzvah of machtas hashekel. So these are another two cases that the Mishnah could have said where it comes out different than the halacha that the Mishnah said. Omar Rav Mana said, Hada da'at Omar, this halacha that you just said, that there's a case where they divided the money and they did not divide or they divided the behemoths, that is, and they did not divide all the monies, that's only that the animals that they did not divide yet, they were not the majority of the inheritance. If the animals is the roiv of what the inheritance is, then this is considered to be the main part of all the monies, and therefore if they divided the animals, it's as if all the monies were divided as well, and therefore you will be chayiv to give a kalbain for the monies as well, because it's as if it was all divided already. Rabavin said, Rab Shami boy. Rab Shammai asked the following question. Mipnei sha'asisem ka'adam echad eitzel ma'aseh behema. So because we consider this to be like one person regarding ma'aseh behema, regarding ma'aseh behema I say, that before it was divided, so it's considered to be all like one person. They didn't yet divide it, so they're not shutfim yet. It's all just the money from one person, and therefore he's chayiv and ma'aseh behema at poitraim and a kalbain. Are you going to say for this reason you potter from the kalbain from machzas hashekel? In other words, what he's asking is the svara that the Gemara said till here is before you divide the inheritance, you don't have to give the kalbain because they're not yet shutfin. It's the money of the father. But he was asking, he didn't agree to this svara. He says, I don't understand this. This is an inheritance that they're all going to yarshin and divide, and they're going to be shutfim in this. So this should be similar to every machzas hashekel that's giving b'shutfis, and you should be chayiv to give a kalbain. So he answered him. The answer was given and said, Omalei loishanye he, isn't it different from a case where it's given actually b'shutfis, shu noisen sela achas. Usually, by when a person gives b'shutfis, shu noisen sela achas shleimu, you give a full shekel for 2 shutfin, and then it's mamish, a regular case of 2 shutfin that are using together 1 full shekel. But over here, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing like 2 shutfin. Over here, they're not yet shutfin. It wasn't divided yet. And therefore, in such a case, you don't have to give a kalbain. So he asks him back, Meyata, if so, afilu cholku, even after they did divide, v'chozru v'nishtatfu, and then they became shutfim again. So what did it? So the halacha should have been chayavim b'maiseh behema. They should be chayiv in maiseh behema if they divided and they became shutfin again. So really, this should be the money. This should still be considered the money of the father, the same inheritance that they got from the father. That it's all one inheritance, and it's not shutfis, so they should be chayiv and ma'aseh behema, or peturim in a kalbain, and they should be potter from the kalbain. In other words, what he's asking is, if you're making this distinction, that when it comes to Yerusha, it's not like a regular shutfis, and therefore, you don't have to give a kalbain, if so, you should take it even a step further and say, even if they did divide, and then they decided to join back together, they're not really regular shutfim, they're brothers. And they're really all getting the same Yerusha from the father. And so in such a case, the halacha should have been that you chayiv and ma'aseh behema, because it's not shutfis, and they should be potter from a kalbain. Taninan, but in the Mishnah it says not so. Chayavim bekalbain, that you are chayiv in the kalbain, and this is considered to be a regular shutfis. They got the Yerusha, they divided it, and then they became shutfin again. It's considered to be like a regular shutfis, and therefore pturim and ma'aseh behema, you are potter from ma'aseh behema. That's what it says in the Mishnah. So the Gemara doesn't answer this question. The Mefarshim say the Gemara is sort of discussing this without coming to a concrete conclusion, but it goes back to the svara that we said before. Even if it started off as a shutfis, but if later they divide, it started off as an inheritance, that is. It started off as a Yerusha. But if they decide to divide later and then become shutfin again, we compare it to a regular shutfis. And if it's a regular shutfis, you're going to be chayiv in a kalbain when you give the machzas hashekel, and you're going to be potter from the ma'aseh behema, like the halacha always is by ma'aseh behema. Rabbi b'shem Rab Abba bar Rav Huna, he said, Shnei Achen. He Shnei Achen sheyarshu savian, the same halacha that we said regarding 2 brothers that yarshin from their father, that before they divided it, it's considered to be like one thing, and it's not a shutfis, and therefore they're potter from a kalbain. He Shnei Gisin sheyarshu as chamian. If there were no brothers, if there were only daughters, and there are brother-in-laws that are yarshaning together from their father-in-law, it's the same halacha, even though they're only brother-in-laws, and the Yerusha is not mamish the same like brothers, where they're yarshaning one thing from their father, but nevertheless has the same halacha that they're not going to be chayiv to giving a kalbain before it's divided. Now the Gemara concludes this inyan, the Gemara concludes the Perek with the question of Lehechan hayu hakalbainis neiflin. What did they do with these kalbainis, these extra coins that they gave together with the machzas shekel. So there's a few opinions here. Rab Meir Eimer l'shkalim. It would be used together with all the machzas shekel. It would go into the same place for the karbanis. Rab Elazar Eimer l'nedavah. It was used separately as nedavis, which was used for karbanis for the mizbeach when there was no kayetz on mizbeach, when there was no other karbanis on the mizbeach. Rab Shimon Shazuri Eimer rikuei zahav. They made from it plates of gold with tzipui lebeis kodesh hakadoshim, and they used it to plate the kodesh hakadoshim with gold. Ben Azai said, Shulchanin hayu noitle noisam b'scharam. That it was used, it was given for the shulchanin, for the money changers, as a reward for giving you the service of the money changing. You see over here, l'shitasim, Rab Meir before said it was together with the machzas hashekel, because Rab Meir held that the whole lien of the kalbainis is min atayra. It goes together with all the machzas hashekel. Ben Azai was saying, no, it goes for the money changers. The last opinion is, it was used in order to pave the roads for the ways for the people to come to be Oile Regel. Where did they have the money for that? They used these kalbainis for that service. Hadaran Allah Perik Be'echad Ba'adar. Let's continue a little bit with the next Mishnah. Zok the Mishnah Mitzarfin Shkalim Lidarchainis. So if you want to carry, so the people of the city would give the machzas hashekel in their cities, and then they would send a shliach to bring all the machzas hashekel to Yerushalayim, to the Beis Hamikdash. So it's going to be very heavy to carry all these machzas hashekels. So they're allowed to exchange the machzas hashekel for darkainis, which are larger coins, which won't be so many coins, won't be so heavy to carry to the Beis Hamikdash. Mipnei masi derech, because of the weight that they have to carry. Kishaim shayis shayfris b'mikdash, another halacha. Just like there were those shayfris in the Beis Hamikdash, there were these big pushkis that were like in the shape of a shayfer, that were narrow at the bottom and wide on the top. Just like they had those shayfris in the Beis Hamikdash, ka shayis shayfris b'medina. So too there were the shayfris in all the cities where Yidden gave the machzas hashekel. B'nei ha'ir, another halacha. The people of the city sheshalchu as shekleim. They sent their shkalim with a shliach. V'nignevu aisha avdu. It was stolen or got lost on the way. Im nitrama truma. If this happened, or they found out about this after in the Beis Hamikdash, they already took off. They already withdrew the money for the new shkalim of that year. So then, who is this shliach that was carrying this money responsible to be answerable to about what happened to the stolen money? Nishba'en legizbaden. They have to make a shvuah to the gizbaden that it got stolen or it got lost, and therefore I'm going to be potter. That's if it happened, or if they found out about it after they already took off the trumah of the new machzas hashekel. Vimlav, if it happened earlier, then nishba'en lebnei. Then their responsibility is to be answerable and to swear to the people of the city, to tell them what happened with the machzas hashekel. Now the people of the city have to give machzas hashekel again, because of their machzas shekel that got lost or stolen. So nimtzu, and then what's going to be the halacha if the original machzas shekel was found? Oishech zirim aganovim, or the ganovim that stole it returned it. So elu v'elu shkalim, both of them, they're going to have the new shkalim that they just gave and the shkalim that got lost or stolen. They're going to have both of them, and they're going to both be machzas hashekel. And ve'ein oinen lehem l'shana haba. They can't say, oh look, we gave machzas hashekel twice this year, so use one of them for the following year. They're both going to be machzas hashekel for this year. Frek the Gemara. If you have an issue of carrying the machzas hashekel and you're exchanging it with coins that have a larger value to make it lighter to carry, v'yasais and margolius. Why don't you just use it for precious gems, diamonds and pearls and things that's going to be even lighter? It's more expensive, so it's going to be even lighter for them to carry. And says the Gemara, no, we don't want to do that because Shema Tazal Amargolius, the market value of these gems fluctuates much more and the value might go down. And v'nimtza ha'hektish mafsid, the hektish is going to lose out of this value of the margolius. Kahidet haninan taman, like what it says in the Mishnah, v'kula niftin bekesef u'b'shava kesef. When you redeem from hektish, you could redeem anything with money or with shava kesef. Chutz mishkalim. By shkalim, when you give machzas hashekel, you can't give shava kesef. You have to give a machzas hashekel. And another halach it said there, ve'ein paidim bekelim. You can't redeem hektish with giving kalim. Why not? Because maybe the kalim that you're giving to the Beis Hamikdash, the value will go down. And therefore hektish loses out from this. So Ufachanami, here the same reason as well. Shema tazel hamargolius. You can't use margolius to carry your machzas hashekel to Yerushalayim because the value might go down. The nimtza hektish mafsid, and the hektish will lose out from this. Masnita, the Mishnah over here was talking about when it says that there was the shofris that they had in every single city that they would give for the machzas hashekel, betiklin chadatin. This is talking about the new machzas hashekel that had to be given for this year, so they had a shofris in each city for the people to give. Avol betiklin atikin, but there's also the machzas hashekel from the previous year. Anybody that didn't give machzas hashekel the previous year has to give the machzas hashekel now. So that the machzas hashekel for the previous year, loy bedah, that's not in this halacha. You don't give it into the regular shofris that were in all the cities. The Tani came, we learned this in Abraisa, atikin b'mikdash. If you have to give machzas hashekel from a previous year, you don't place it into the shofris that were in all the cities. You have to deliver it and bring it to the Beis HaMikdash. Ve'en atikin b'Medina. There's no atikin that was brought in the Medina. Now the Gemara goes to the halacha of the shliach that was carrying everything to Yerushalayim, and essentially he was a shomer. He was there to safeguard the machzas hashekel and deliver it to the Beis Hamikdash. So the Gemara explains the halacha of the Mishnah. Masnisin b'shomer chinam. The Mishnah is talking about a person that's a shomer chinam, and therefore he's going to be potter for gneiv and aveda. That's why it said in the Mishnah that he swears if a gneiv and aveda happens, he's only chayav for a pshia, for negligence, but for gneiv and aveda will be potter, so he makes a shvua to pater himself. Avol b'shomer sachar. If he was a shomer that was paid, he's a shomer sachar loy bedah, so he's not on this halacha. If a gneiv and aveda happens, a person that's paid is chayav for that. Rababa says no. We can say afilateim b'shomer sachar. The Mishnah could be speaking even about a shomer sachar. When it says in the Mishnah gneiv and aveda, what is it speaking about? Nignevu b'listim mezuyan. The gneva happened with listim mezuyan, with a ganev that has weapons on him. So therefore, this is not a regular gneva. This is an einis. And even a shomer sachar is potter from this. And avdu, when it says that it got lost, what are we talking about? Kimishetavas finase b'yam. We're talking about a case that his boat capsized in the sea, so it's an einis as well, and therefore an einis, even a shomer sachar is potter from. Amar Rav Yusti Bar Simain said regarding our Mishnah. So what did it say in the Mishnah? That if you found out about this Gneva Va'aveda after they already withdrew the money from all the machzas hashekel in the Beis Hamikdash, so then this shliach will have to make a shvuah to who? To the Gizbar in the Beis Hamikdash. So he says that Asya, this halacha of the Mishnah, is going to be Kamanda Omar, according to the opinion that says Toirmin, when you withdraw the money of the machzas hashekel in the Beis Hamikdash, he's withdrawing that money ala govui, on this that was collected already, but even before it arrived to the Beis Hamikdash, va'ala osid ligbois, and even for what was not collected yet, but what he's collecting, what you withdraw, even goes on what's going to be collected from the Yidden. In other words, very often what would happen is that the machzas hashekel that was brought in the Beis Hamikdash, it should have been there on time for the Chodesh Nisan, but it wasn't necessarily there on time. There were other people that are going to donate later, and it's going to, even if they donated already, it has to come from a far distance, and until it arrives to the Beis Hamikdash, it didn't get there on time. So this Mandama says, when they withdrew the money on the Chodesh Nisan, it was done with the das to include also all the money that's going to come in the future. So therefore, the shliach that's bringing this money, who does it belong to? It already belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. Once it was given, the money in the Beis Hamikdash that's being withdrawn also goes on this money that's being delivered to the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, if it gets lost or it gets stolen on the way, so the Shliach Bezdin has to make a shvuah to the Gizbar because it already belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. Beram, however, the mandama that says that when he withdraws the money in the Beis Hamikdash, it does not include any of the monies that was collected but was not delivered yet. And it does not include the monies that was not even donated yet, so loy b'da. It's not in this halacha that you make the shvuah to the gizbar. Why would you make the shvuah to the gizbar? It wasn't brought to the gizbar yet, and the money that he's withdrawing does not include that money that it's still in delivery, it's still being brought. So therefore you have to make the shvuah to the people of the city that gave you the machzas hashekel. One more keta over here in the Sinyan. Said in the Mishnah, B'nei Ha'ir, the people of this, the next thing in the Mishnah, it said, B'nei Ha'ir Sheshalchu Es Shekleyan, so the Mishnah said that they have to make a shvuah. If it got lost or stolen, you have to make a shvuah. And it made the distinction, sometimes they make a shvuah to the Gizbar and sometimes to the people of the city. So on this, the Gemara explains, the Yemes is, there's a Mishnah Masechta Shvuas that says that by Kochim, there's no inyan of a shvua. You don't make a shvua b'negei to kachim. So that's the question the Gemara is coming to address right now. So Amar Rabbi Lazar, the Rab Shimon, this Mishnah that says over here that by kachim there's a shvua. This is following the opinion of Rab Shimon. Shimon said, kachim shehu chayev b'achriyusan k'nechasav hein. When you have money of kachim that you're going to be responsible if they got lost, so then it's like your money and you chayev to make a shvua for this. If you have money from kachim and kachim gives it as a pekadon somewhere, and so then there's no chiyuv that caught by kachim that you have to make a shvua for that. But over here, since this is money that the people that donated this, if it got lost or stolen, they're going to be responsible to replace it. So for this, you are chayiv to make a shvua. It's not like the halacha of kachim. That's the first opinion. Rabbi Lazar's pshat in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yechanan said, Divrei HaKailhi, this is not only Rabbi Shimon's opinion, but mishum shavuas takana. The fact that the shliach bezin has to make a shvua if it got lost or stolen, it's minatayra taka. You wouldn't be chayiv to make a shvua in this case. It's a takana midirabanan in order for the shliach bezin not to be mizalzel in this money. He should know that if he loses it, he's going to have to make a shvua. So it's a takana midirabanan. Now the Gemara asks a question on this. Al das to Rabbi Yechanan niche. According to Rabbi Yechanan, the Mishnah is understood. Nishban legizbarin. There's a takana. Sometimes you have to make a shvua for the gizbar. Vim lav nishban lebnei, and sometimes you make the shvua for the people of the city. Uvenei as it said in the Mishnah, the people of the city, shayklan acherim tachteyan, will have to give other shkalim instead of the shkalim that got lost. Mishum shvuas takana. So this is all a takana minatayra. You don't make a shvua because it's kachim, but midrabanan there's a takana that shliach bezin should not be negligent, and therefore you make this shvua. But according to Rabbi Lazar, nishban levnei ir, the shvua that you make for the people of the city, that's understood. Hadah hi de Rab Shimon. That's what we just said before, based on Rab Shimon, because the people of the city are going to be responsible if it got lost. So it's not purely like kachim. So you have to make a shvua for the people of the city to say what happened with this money. But nishbar and legizbarim. But when it said in the Mishnah that you make a shvua for the gizbar once they already withdrew the money, so you have to make a shvua for the gizbar. Gizbarim maya videtayu. Why are you making a shvua for the gizbar? If you're making the shvua for the gizbar, that means that it already belongs to kachim. And for kachim, you don't make a shvua. So why are you making a shvua for kachim? So Rabbi Lazar's pshat only explains half of the Mishnah. It doesn't explain the part of the shvua that you make for the gizbar. So Yitaka changes the pshat of the Mishnah. He says, Nishban levnei ir. Pshat of the Mishnah is that you make the shvua always just for the people of the city. B'maimed gizbarim. Once the money was withdrawn, so then it has to be made in the presence of the gizbarim, since they withdrew the money for the purpose of this money that they were delivering in their presence. But it's not a shvua for the gizbarim. And why do we make it in the presence of the gizbarim? In order that the gizbarim should not be chayshed this shliach that was bringing the money, that he took the money for himself. In order that people shouldn't think of them of being negligent, of not delivering the money. So we want them to make the shvua not only for the people of the city, but also in the presence of the gizbar, that everybody should hear, and the shvua that they make, that they lost the money or that it got stolen. That's the pshat in the Mishnah. Then it said in the Mishnah, Afal Pi, another halacha the Gemara says in connection to what it says in the Mishnah, Afal Pi shekiblu b'nei el shalim, even if the people of the city are going to say to this shliach that, you know what, you don't have to make any shvua for us, we trust you for what happened, and we're going to pay again the machtas hashekel. Even if the people of the city accepted that upon themselves, ein hektish yetze b'lei shvua. The hektish, you have to make a shvua for the hektish, because this goes back to Rabbi Yechanan's opinion. The reason for the shvua is the takana, that the shliach should not be mezalzel and hektish. So even if the people are ready to pay, it doesn't matter. You have to make a shvua for the hektish. Hifrish shiklai, if you gave your machtas hashekel and you're delivering it yourself, and va'avad, and it got lost on the way. So we're not talking here about a shliach that's bringing it. You delivered it and it got lost. Rabbi Yechanan says, Chayev b'achriyusa, you're going to be responsible for this until it's given over to the gizbar. You're going to have to replace it. Rab Shimon Malakish says, Hektish b'rishus gavoya hagavoya b'chol mokim shehu. Once you donated the money, even if you're delivering it, even before it comes to Hektish, it already belongs to Hektish wherever it is in the world. If it got lost, you did your mitzvah already. You don't have to replace it. Now the Gemara says, Masnite, pligal Rab Shimon ben Lakish. The Mishnah is a question in Rab Shimon ben Lakish, because what did it say in the Mishnah? Nishban levnei ir, the shliach that was delivering the money makes a shvua to the people of the city that it got lost. Ubnei ir, sheiklin tachtein. You have to replace it. According to Rab Shimon ben Lakish, why do you have to replace it? It was already given to Hektish. So the Gemara says, Loi oid, isn't it what we said before? Hi mishum shvuas takana, that the whole shvua that you have to make for the people of the city is just a takana, that you shouldn't be mezalzel in the machzas hashekel. So according to Rab Shimon ben Lakish, when you lost your machzas hashekel, the fact that you have to give again is also only a takana. Min hatayri, you gave it, it's done. It's only a takana to give again, so you shouldn't be mezalzel your machzas hashekel. Tani, it said in the Mishnah, harishainim, Neiflin, letaklin, chadatin. Okay, so it said in the Mishnah that if you gave the machzas shekel and then it got lost and then you found it again, so now you have two machzas shekels. So harishainim, the first ones that you had, neiflin, letaklin, chadatin. That goes into the pushke where the new machzas shekel of the year is. Vashniim, the second ones that you now have, neiflin, letaklin, atikin. They go with the old machzas shekel that people are giving from previous years. The Gemara explains now what's considered to be the rishainim, what's considered to be shniim. Eilein arishainim ve'eilein ashniim. So there's a machlokes here. Rab Pinchas, Rab Chia, Rab Abba, Bamari argued about this. Chad Omar, one of them said, Eilu shesholchu b'nei ir tchila, the first machzas shekel that they sent, that got lost, that's considered to be the first machzas shekel, which is used as the new machzas shekel of this year. And v'charana Omar, the other opinion was, no, Eilu she'egiyu l'dei gizbarin tchila, the one that you gave second, which came to the Gizba first, that's considered to be the first machzas shekel that goes for the new machzas shekel for this year.